I always say that my father, that Bruce Lee, is actually all about love, because everything he did from his heart.
On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee, arguably the most electrifying martial artist the world has ever known, collapsed and died in a Hong Kong apartment at just 32 years old. The official cause was cerebral edema, but within hours, whispers of foul play, secret health conditions, and cover-ups began spreading. Now, 50 years later, his daughter, Shannon Lee, has stepped forward with results from advanced DNA testing. And for the first time, she's ready to break her silence. Shannon Lee confirms shocking rumors about Bruce Lee after DNA results uncovered a truth more unsettling and more personal than anyone had imagined. The wait is over. Let's take a look at the results. The Day the Dragon Fell, revisiting a medical mystery. Bruce Lee was at the height of his global fame in the summer of 1973. Having just wrapped up filming for Enter the Dragon, he was poised to become a full-fledged international star. On July 20th, he spent the day in Hong Kong reviewing scripts and planning future projects. In the evening, while visiting actress Betty Ting Pei at her apartment, Lee complained of a headache. She gave him an Equagesic tablet, a combination of aspirin and a muscle relaxant. He lay down to rest and never woke up. By nightfall, Bruce Lee was pronounced dead at Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The autopsy concluded that he had died from cerebral edema, swelling of the brain, but authorities could not determine what had triggered it. There were no signs of trauma, no overdose. Toxicology reports were inconclusive. The term death by misadventure was eventually used, but it was a result that was unsatisfying to many. In the days that followed, confusion gave way to conspiracy. Fans and journalists alike struggled to accept that a man so physically dominant, so precise in his control over his own body, could die so suddenly and inexplicably. Reports surfaced suggesting he may have suffered from heat stroke or an allergic reaction. Others speculated about an aneurysm or epileptic seizure. With no definitive cause, speculation filled the void. Adding to the mystery, Bruce Lee had previously collapsed 2 months earlier, in May 1973, experiencing similar symptoms: seizures and swelling of the brain. He had recovered at the time, but it now seemed like a warning sign that had gone unheeded. That incident, too, had no clear cause. With a lack of definitive answers, theories ran wild among fans. The mystery only deepened when public records seemed to contradict themselves. Some said Bruce had died at Betty Ting Pei's flat. Others insisted he was found at home. There were whispers of a cover-up, of powerful people in the Hong Kong film industry, protecting their own reputations. For his fans, the suddenness of Bruce Lee's death created a kind of myth. And over the years, the lack of a clear answer turned that myth into a breeding ground for rumors. But behind the scenes, his daughter Shannon Lee quietly continued to search for the truth. She stayed silent publicly, but she never stopped asking questions. She was only 4 years old when her father died, barely old enough to have made too many memories with him. But as she got older, she understood she couldn't let the rumors continue to define his legacy. Half a century later, she finally has the evidence she needed. And what it reveals changes everything we thought we knew about Bruce Lee. Half-century of rumors and theories. In the vacuum left by Bruce Lee's unexplained death, speculation flourished. Over the past 50 years, nearly every conceivable theory has been proposed, and some have stuck around far longer than logic would allow. Shannon Lee has often acknowledged the weight of these rumors, though until now she never directly addressed them. With new DNA results in hand, she's finally ready to do so. But before revealing what was confirmed, it's important to understand just how far the speculation has gone. One of the earliest and most persistent rumors was that Bruce Lee was assassinated by Chinese criminal syndicates, most notably the Triads. According to this theory, Lee had either refused to pay protection money or crossed powerful individuals in the Hong Kong film scene. The suggestion of a martial arts hit became a staple of tabloid headlines throughout the 1970s and 1980s, despite zero credible evidence. The reason this likely stuck was because the theory felt like something out of a movie that Lee could have starred in. It was mysterious and exciting, but it ignored facts and just became another piece of heartbreaking speculation for the Lee family to deal with. Another long-circulated idea was that Lee had a severe allergic reaction to cannabis, which he occasionally used for back pain and relaxation. Traces of marijuana were found in his stomach, prompting some to argue that he died from an adverse drug reaction. However, forensic experts at the time dismissed this possibility due to the low levels detected. Then there were the medical theories. Some physicians speculated that Lee might have suffered from a rare form of epilepsy, known as SUDEP, sudden unexpected death in epilepsy. Others suggested he had a previously undiagnosed brain aneurysm, or a condition related to his famously low body fat and dehydration habits. In 2022, a group of Spanish researchers introduced a new idea. Bruce Lee died from hyponatremia, an electrolyte imbalance caused by excessive water intake and inability to properly excrete it. The theory gained traction, but lacked biological proof. Beyond medicine and mafia hits, some theories veered into mysticism. There were claims that Bruce Lee had been cursed, possibly due to the filming of his final movie, Game of Death, which featured a character who dies suddenly. Others pointed to the so-called Lee family curse, noting that his son, Brandon Lee, died in an eerily similar fashion, sudden, unexpected, while filming a movie 20 years later. None of these ideas were ever substantiated. None were ever officially confirmed. And for decades, Shannon Lee refused to engage with them publicly. Talks of curse were of no comfort when she'd lost her father and her brother. But privately, she began a quiet inquiry of her own, one driven not by conspiracy or myth, but by science. Today, Shannon Lee confirms shocking rumors about Bruce Lee after DNA results gave her what no theory ever could: evidence. And now, the truth is no longer out of reach. Shannon Lee's 2-decade silence. In the years following her father's death, Shannon Lee inherited more than just a name. She inherited the responsibility of managing a global icon's legacy. As the only surviving child of Bruce Lee and Linda Lee Cadwell, Shannon became the de facto steward of her father's memory, martial arts philosophy, and unfinished work. But behind the foundation grants, media projects, and commemorative events, she carried a personal mission that was never public, getting to the bottom of what really happened on July 20th, 1973. Shannon rarely spoke about her father's death in specific terms. When she did, her focus remained on his life, not his final moments. As CEO of the Bruce Lee Family Company and president of the Bruce Lee Foundation, she prioritized cultural preservation over forensic revision. Her work on the Max original series Warrior, based on a concept Bruce had developed in the early 1970s, was emblematic of that mission. Keep her father's voice alive without reopening old wounds. She never wanted to feed into the rumors, especially the more speculative theories. She wanted her father to be remembered for his work, not his death. Yet as Shannon's own daughter grew older and began asking questions about her grandfather, she realized the official explanations were no longer sufficient, not for herself, and not for future generations. She began consulting with medical experts privately, revisiting archived documentation, and speaking with surviving witnesses. But without biological data, she hit a wall. That changed in 2023, when the opportunity arose to submit DNA samples from preserved Lee family remains for genetic testing. Shannon's hesitation wasn't just scientific, it was emotional. She had lived under the weight of international conspiracy theories her entire adult life. Every time Bruce Lee's name trended online, there was a renewed cycle of speculation. Did someone kill him? Was it the cannabis? Was he cursed? She had spent years trying not to dignify these claims with a response. If she went ahead with the DNA testing, there was every chance that the results might confirm the shocking rumors. But science had moved on. Advanced genomic sequencing and variant interpretation could now do what autopsies in 1973 could not. For the first time, she had a way to close the loop with clarity and objectivity. What she found was startling, but not in the way tabloids had long suggested. The answer was hidden not in a crime scene, but in her family's genes. After decades of silence, she decided that it was time to tell the truth. Now, Shannon Lee confirms the shocking rumors armed with scientific backing for what many had once dismissed as guesswork. And as she prepared to go public, she did so not with fear, but with purpose. Collecting and sequencing Lee family DNA. In late 2024, Shannon Lee initiated a quiet but carefully structured process to gather and analyze the genetic material that could finally bring clarity to the mystery surrounding her father's death. Unlike previous speculation, which relied on circumstantial details or vague medical theories, this effort was rooted in modern science and verified by two separate genomics laboratories in California and Singapore. The first step involved locating usable biological material. Fortunately, the Bruce Lee estate had preserved several personal items over the decades, including a strand of Bruce's hair encased in resin, dental impressions, and a mouthguard worn during martial arts training. After consultation with forensics experts, the team extracted viable DNA from these samples using non-destructive techniques. The process was delicate, but successful. To increase accuracy, Shannon Lee also volunteered her own DNA, along with that of her teenage daughter, Ren. The multi-generational data allowed researchers to identify inherited genetic traits with greater confidence and filter out any environmental variables that might cloud the analysis. Chain of custody protocols were strictly followed to ensure the integrity of the results. Each sample was assigned a code and sent to the two labs independently, with the scientists at each location blind to the origin of the materials. This eliminated any possibility of bias or contamination. The sequencing focused on known genes linked to electrolyte regulation, seizure susceptibility, drug metabolism, and thermoregulation, all systems theorized to have contributed to Bruce Lee's death. In particular, the researchers honed in on specific gene clusters that play a role in fluid balance and the body's ability to clear certain compounds, including muscle relaxants. Once sequencing was complete, the findings were peer-reviewed by a panel of medical geneticists, neurologists, and pharmacologists. Their goal was not to prove a theory, but to determine whether any clear biological risk factors had been overlooked in 1973 due to the limitations of the time. Shannon Lee received the full report in early 2025. She read it once, then again. There it was. Clear, replicable data pointing to a condition that had never been diagnosed in her father, but one that could very well have triggered the chain of events that led to his death. At last, she had something stronger than suspicion. The results would not only support one of the most controversial theories about Bruce Lee, but they would also debunk several others. And just as important, they gave Shannon the one thing she had always sought: answers grounded in evidence. Answers that would finally allow her to speak with certainty. Findings that change the narrative. The DNA analysis revealed two crucial findings, each with major implications for understanding Bruce Lee's death. For decades, the most pressing question had been whether his collapse was due to an external factor, like drugs or injury, or something internal that no one had been able to identify. Now, science has provided an answer. The first and most significant discovery was a rare variant in the AQP4 gene. This gene is responsible for regulating the movement of water in and out of cells, particularly in the brain. The variant discovered in Bruce Lee's DNA predisposes carriers to hyponatremia, a dangerous condition in which sodium levels in the blood become dangerously diluted due to excessive water retention. This condition can cause cerebral edema, the exact cause listed on Bruce Lee's death certificate in 1973. This finding supports a recent theory published in 2022 by a team of Spanish nephrologists in the Clinical Kidney Journal, who argued that Bruce Lee may have died from the inability to excrete excess water. While the idea had sparked renewed discussion, it lacked hard proof. The DNA results change that. Bruce Lee had a genetic vulnerability that could have triggered severe fluid imbalance, especially when combined with factors such as intense heat, dehydration practices, and even certain medications, like the equagesic he took just before his death. Shannon Lee confirmed the shocking rumors about Bruce Lee after the DNA results directly aligned with this hypothesis. In her words, the story wasn't mystical, it was medical, and it was connected to his biology all along. The second major finding, while unrelated to the cause of death, addressed another long-standing rumor: Bruce Lee's heritage. For years, some had speculated that Bruce's mother, Grace Ho, came from a Eurasian background, possibly of German or English descent. Though not medically relevant, this theory lingered in popular biographies and was often used to explain Bruce's unique physical appearance and cultural adaptability. The genetic analysis confirmed that Bruce Lee had approximately 1/4 European ancestry, consistent with earlier family oral histories, suggesting that Grace Ho was the daughter of a Chinese mother and a Eurasian father. This put to rest another debate that had persisted for decades in martial arts circles and among biographers. While some may dismiss this as secondary information, Shannon Lee sees it differently. Understanding who he was, genetically, medically, ancestrally, is part of honoring his full truth, she said. He lived between worlds, culturally and biologically. That's part of what made him so powerful and so misunderstood. Together, these findings reframe Bruce Lee's death not as the result of foul play or mystery, but as a perfect storm of genetic vulnerability, extreme conditions, and misinterpreted symptoms. They don't diminish his legend, they humanize it. And for Shannon Lee, these DNA results don't close the book on her father's story. They open a new chapter grounded in truth, not myth. For years, Shannon avoided speculation, but the result left no room for argument, and now she's decided to go public. It's time to tell the truth. Shannon Lee goes public. Shannon Lee has avoided a fanfare about the result, likely to keep the focus on preserving her father's legacy rather than fiercely reigniting the debate on his death. However, to close friends and family, she's declared that it's time to tell the truth, and it appears that the results have been leaked, which may have been part of her plan all along. Not to directly address the issue, but to allow the confirmation of the rumors to slowly trickle out. For the first time in 50 years, the world heard a clear, evidence-based explanation from Bruce Lee's own family about what likely caused his death. This is not about rewriting history, Shannon has reportedly told friends. It's about finishing a story that was never given a proper ending. My father deserves that, and so does everyone who's ever asked what really happened on July 20th, 1973. Shannon Lee confirmed the shocking rumors about Bruce Lee after DNA results revealed a genetic predisposition to hyponatremia, an often overlooked condition that can cause brain swelling in response to fluid imbalance. She has detailed how the specific gene variant her father carried, now known to impair water regulation in the body, matched what neurologists believe triggered his fatal cerebral edema. This wasn't something anyone could have diagnosed at the time. The science didn't exist, she said. But now we have the tools, and we've used them. And what we found is a pattern that aligns perfectly with the events of that day. She's also addressed the years of misinformation. It wasn't an overdose. It wasn't a triad assassination. No, my father wasn't cursed. These ideas have haunted our family for decades. They were distractions, born of confusion, grief, and cultural noise. So why has Shannon come forward now? Likely because there's no room left for guessing games. She has the facts and the evidence, and it's time to put them to use. Importantly, Shannon has made it clear to those closest to her that this revelation does not diminish her father's legacy. If anything, it deepens it. My father pushed his body to extraordinary limits, she said. But even he had vulnerabilities, like we all do. That doesn't make him less of a legend. It makes him real. Understanding Bruce Lee through this lens of medical truth doesn't erase the mystery. It just replaces it with something more grounded, more respectful, and above all, more human. For Shannon Lee, confirming the shocking rumors about Bruce Lee after receiving the DNA results wasn't about closure. It was about clarity. No more wild theories, no more speculation, just facts and medical evidence that wasn't available at the time of his death. Medical fact versus myth-making. With the DNA evidence now public, the global conversation around Bruce Lee has shifted from mystique to medicine, from speculation to science. While many fans welcome the closure, Others struggled to reconcile the human vulnerability revealed by the findings with the near-mythical image of Bruce Lee as an invincible force. But experts say this new understanding only strengthens his legacy. "This changes the story," said Dr. Aaron Kim, a neurologist specializing in hyponatremia and traumatic brain conditions. "Not in a way that undermines Bruce Lee's greatness, but in a way that underscores how dangerously little we knew back then about electrolyte regulation in extreme athletes." Medical professionals across sports science, neurology, and martial arts physiology quickly weighed in. Many noted that Bruce's famously low body fat, fluid-heavy diet, and relentless training schedule created an environment in which a condition like hyponatremia could be deadly, especially in someone genetically predisposed to it. The new data helps connect the dots that had baffled experts for decades. For Shannon Lee, the findings also challenged long-standing myths that shaped how the world understood her father. When people talk about Bruce Lee's death, it's always surrounded by shadows, mystery, violence, paranoia. But it was his body, not a conspiracy, that failed him. That truth is more valuable than any myth, she's reportedly revealed. The revelation has already begun influencing biographers and martial arts scholars. Revised editions of several major biographies are in the works, incorporating the genetic findings into their analysis of Bruce Lee's final days. And among professional fighters, trainers, and health advisors, discussions around hydration practices and electrolyte monitoring are seeing a renewed push, especially for those engaging in extreme conditioning. Ironically, this scientific lens offers a fuller picture of the man who once said, "Be water, my friend." Bruce Lee's relationship with fluidity, both metaphorical and literal, now takes on deeper meaning. His philosophy of adaptability was more than a fighting principle. It may have also been a subconscious attempt to master a physiological trait he never knew he carried. In the end, separating myth from man hasn't made Bruce Lee smaller. It's made him more real, and perhaps even more remarkable. Legacy in action: Shannon Lee's next steps. With the DNA findings now public and the long-standing questions finally answered, Shannon Lee is turning her focus toward the future. But she isn't stepping back from her father's legacy. She's reactivating it, this time with purpose rooted in science and truth. It's believed that first on her agenda could be enabling the Bruce Lee Foundation to fund a new research initiative focused on genetic vulnerabilities in high-performance athletes. Partnering with universities in the US and Asia, the foundation could aim to study the prevalence of fluid regulation disorders like hyponatremia in combat sports professionals, bodybuilders, and dancers, groups that often push the limits of dehydration, supplementation, and overtraining. The research could allow for fresh understanding of such conditions, understanding that simply didn't exist when Bruce Lee died, but it could now save lives. In 2020, Shannon released a book about the teaching of Bruce Lee. There's every chance that in the future she could well release a second book discussing the impact of the rumors and the confirmation of the DNA results. Only time will tell. What remains is a more human, more nuanced portrait of Bruce Lee, not just as a cinematic icon, but as a man whose strength coexisted with unseen vulnerability. For his daughter, the truth about his death didn't diminish him. It elevated him and his legend. Does knowing the truth about Bruce Lee make him less of a legend or more of one? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.